Welcome to sunny South Florida, where it could be sunny in your backyard and raining in your front yard. Hey there everyone. I'm here today to help you set up a tank without electricity, which basically means we're going to set up this tank right here without using any pumps, no filters, no lights, nothing. And we're going to be able to keep some small fish in there and keep them healthy and happy. So this is going to pertain to anyone living in a tropical area or subtropical area where the temperature doesn't really drop below 70 degrees too often, because tropical fish don't really like cold. This will also work in areas that have warm and stable summer conditions for like summer tanks or grow out tanks for fry or stuff like that, or even breeding bettas. So this will apply to anybody in that list. All right, let's get started. All right, so let's get started by cleaning out the tank first. Of course, we want to start with a clean tank because you don't want any contaminants from whatever storage the tank was in. So I'm using a tank that I had in my shed for a while. So it's got some kind of grunge on the bottom. I just want to scrub that out real quick because it's probably just rainwater, but I don't want to take a chance. I also want the water to be nice and clear when I fill the tank up. So I'm just going to use magic eraser and I'm going to scrub everything out. So let's do that. Might help to have the magic eraser. Nice good rinse. We got ourselves a nice clean tank. Let's move on to the next step. All right, now that we got a clean tank, we should be able to fill it up with water and get it ready for the fish. First things first though, I'm going to use Prime. Prime is a water conditioner. You can honestly use any brand you want. I prefer Prime because it's a more concentrated formula, and I have a lot of tanks that I have to treat. So this bottle lasts me forever. So I treat with about a half a capful for a 10-gallon tank just to be on the safe side. It shouldn't mess with your water chemistry or anything like that if you have good water. Half a capful goes in. And if you're using a hose, this is how I recommend doing it. You put in a treatment of water first. You put a treatment in first. Fill up the tank. And once it's full, you add another treatment, just to make sure you got all of the contaminants that are in your tap water that don't hurt us, but will hurt your fish. Things like chlorine, chloramine, stuff like that. You want to make sure those are all taken out of the water. If you don't, your fish will be dead within hours. So I don't want to see that happen to you guys. Make sure you treat your water properly. Now, here in South Florida, we actually have really good quality water. I'm just going to center this real quick. Okay. Here in South Florida, all of our water comes from wells. The city then treats the water to make it safe for human consumption, taking out a lot of the excess iron, minerals, etc., treating it to make sure there's no bacteria, all that good stuff. What this does is it creates a water that's got a high pH, and it's got a lot of minerals in it as well. This is great for a lot of your farm-bred fish. Most of the fish in the pet store are from South Florida farms or from farms overseas. A lot of those fish were bred in water in similar conditions, so it's what they're already used to. So I generally recommend keeping your aquariums in a pH between 7 and 8. That way it's slightly on the alkaline side, higher pH. You don't have too many acids in the water, and your water tends to stay cleaner. I'm just going to stop it here because I want to have a little space in case my fish try to jump. Swordtails like to jump, Bettas sometimes do, things like that. I'm also going to add some plants. Because I'm doing this tank without gravel, I want floating plants. This tank is best suited for fish like livebearers. Platies, Guppies, Swordtails, Mollies, etc. The reason for that is the floating plants allow a place for the fry to hide. So the parents have plenty of free swimming space while the babies all hide in this plant matter. This plant, for the record, is called hornwort, or more commonly, guppy grass. It's kind of prickly, so larger fish don't really like to swim in it that often, so it provides a much better place for your baby fish to hide. And also, it's a very easy plant to grow. It does not like being planted in the gravel. Just leave it floating, and it'll grow like crazy. My crayfish like to eat this, so when I get too much of it growing, I just throw it in one of my crayfish tanks, and they chow down on it. It's best suited for an unfiltered tank, in my opinion, because it does tend to shed needles, and these needles will get stuck in your filter and clog it up faster. So in this tank with no filter, it's perfect. It adds oxygen. It filters the water by absorbing nitrates and a lot of the fish's waste. And as I said, it provides oxygen. That's the most important part for your fish if you're doing anything other than a betta. So now that we got the plants in, we got the water in, we do our second dose. We can do that before or after the plants, doesn't really matter. Other good plants for this use are anacharis, water sprite. I'm going to stir that around a little bit. Water sprite. Basically any fast-growing plant that does not need to be rooted. So you don't want to use things like Amazon swords or anything like that. But if you do want to do something like that, put it in a pot. That way it stays on the bottom and provides some hiding places for your fish. You can use ornaments, rocks, whatever you want at the bottom. I'm going to leave this bare because swordtails don't really care about that. And in South Florida, we have a lot of predators. We have cats, we have raccoons, possums, birds of prey. Well, the birds of prey aren't really going to mess with your fish, but more like egrets and stuff like that. So I simply use a screen lid because it's well ventilated. It'll let air in and out. And as the breeze blows over, it'll create some turbulence at the surface that helps for oxygen exchange. The last thing I want to add about this tank is you got to be careful with your stocking. You don't want to put too many fish in this tank or you'll have severe water quality problems. They'll run out of oxygen, they'll be gasping at the surface, and the tank will just get dirty really quickly. I change my unfiltered tanks. I change their water pretty often, about once a week. I do up to 50%. At times I do more, but that's during the summer when the fish are breeding. More details on that on another video down the road. So, change water often. That way your fish stay healthy and your nitrates and parameters stay in check. The last little tidbit I want to add for this. You are going to have algae with an outside tank. I use Algae Fix, and Algae Fix is just a simple treatment that kills algae, but actually doesn't harm your plants. So that's why I like using this so much. So I actually prefer to wait until there's actually some algae growth, whether the water starts turning green or I start seeing algae growing on things, then I'll do a treatment. Follow the directions on whatever algae killing stuff you choose, but this one, it's 1 milliliter for every 10 gallons. So when this does start growing algae, I'll just add a milliliter to it real quick, and it'll take about 3 days to see effects. If the algae isn't gone by then, I'll put in another 1 milliliter. And from that point, to maintain clear water, I'll do 1 milliliter every week. That way it stays clear. But that way you know it's working if you wait until you actually have algae. Otherwise, you can add algae-eating fish, stuff like that. A pleco. Plecos can actually breathe air, but something like a bushy nose, something that stays small and is pretty hardy. But other than that, that's how you set up an unfiltered tank. And there you have it. We now have a tank that's set up without using any electricity. No filter, no lights. The only thing keeping this tank healthy are live plants. Now, about the last montage you just saw of me throwing everything together, don't throw your fish into brand new fresh water like that. If you're going to do a tank like this, set it up with water that the fish came from, the source water per se. You can also do a 50-50 mix. That allows you to use some of the water the fish are used to and filling the rest of the tank with brand new water. That will simulate a water change and might even make your fish a lot happier. I also want to talk about tank placement. Don't put this tank in direct sunlight, otherwise you're going to have a lot of algae growth and you won't be able to control it. Put it in a nice shady patio, somewhere that doesn't get any direct sunlight, and your fish will be a lot happier. They won't have any temperature swings that could stress them out and make them sick. Now about the fish I put in here. These guys are all live bearers, which generally do well in a setup like this. These gold ones are 24 karat gold lyre-tail mollies. These are all fish I actually bred myself, and I plan on breeding more of them. On the far left there, you see an orange koi swordtail. I also breed more of them, and a few different varieties of them as well. And also in here you might have seen a little gray baby molly. He's kind of a mystery molly. We don't really know who his parents are. So to wrap things up, on the next video, or in a future video, I want to talk about setting up a standard aquarium. Something you'll have in your house that's plugged into electricity using a pump, a light. We'll even throw in some live plants and a stocking of tropical community fish that all get along. Something you'd want to set up in your house. Alright, so in the meantime, continue your fish adventures and tune back in for more of my adventures with tropical fish, and have a great day.